Captain Hyunwoo adjusted the controls of his stealth ship Retribution as it drifted through the outer edges of the Morvac home system. The ship's hull was coated with adaptive camouflage that bent light around it, making it nearly invisible to sensors. In the cargo bay, Dr. Jae-sung Kang made final adjustments to the stellar modification nanobots that would soon change everything. "We're 2 light hours from the star," Oh reported quietly. "Morvac patrol ships are following predictable routes. We should have a clear path to deployment range." Kang nodded, his face pale but determined. 6 months had passed since the Hippocrates was destroyed. 6 months of sleepless nights, working to create humanity's response to the murder of their healers. Now the moment had finally come. Admiral Dong-wook Lee coordinated the operation from the command ship Oracle's Voice, hidden in deep space beyond the system's edge. 17 stealth ships were moving into position around key Morvac star systems, each carrying enough nanobots to destabilize an entire sun. "All ships report ready," his tactical officer announced. "Waiting for your command, Admiral." Lee looked at the star chart showing Morvac space. Hundreds of billions of lives depended on those distant suns. In a few hours, many of those stars would begin their journey toward death. The weight of that decision pressed down on him like a mountain. "The Morvac Empire chose this path when they attacked our hospital ship," he said finally. "Execute Operation Hippocrates. Across 17 star systems, human stealth ships began releasing their deadly cargo. The nanobots were invisible to conventional sensors, designed to drift toward their target stars on solar wind currents. Each cluster contained trillions of microscopic machines, all programmed with one purpose: to make stars unstable. Specialist Young-hee Kim monitored the nanobotic deployment from her station aboard the Retribution. She had lost her brother on the Hippocrates, a young engineer who had volunteered for medical ship duty to help others. Now she was helping humanity take its revenge. "Nanobots deployed successfully," she reported. "Estimated time to stellar contact: 6 hours." The Morvac Empire had no idea what was coming for them. Their sensor networks were designed to detect ships and missiles, not tiny machines smaller than viruses. The nanobots drifted through space like cosmic dust, invisible and patient. Dr. Kang watched the deployment data with mixed feelings. His scientific mind marveled at the elegant physics involved in stellar destabilization, but his human heart recoiled at what they were about to do. Entire worlds would become uninhabitable. Billions would die or be forced to flee their homes. "Doctor?" Captain Oh asked quietly. "Are you certain the failsafes will work?" Kang nodded. "Each nanobotic cluster has a quantum communicator. We can now send a shutdown signal that will cause them to self-destruct. The stellar damage can be stopped if the Morvac surrender quickly enough." The first target was a red giant star in the Morvac military sector. War Commander Vextar's personal fleet was stationed there, preparing for the invasion of human space. As the nanobots reached the star's outer layers, they began their programmed work. Lieutenant Dalho Nam, monitoring communications from the Oracle's Voice, picked up the first signs of trouble in Morvac space. "Admiral, I'm detecting unusual transmissions from Sector 7. They're reporting solar anomalies." On the Morvac military station orbiting the red giant, confusion spread through the command center. Technical Officer Grixtal stared at his readings in disbelief. "Commander," he reported to Vextar, "the star's magnetic field is showing impossible patterns. Solar flare activity has increased by 300% in the last hour." Vextar studied the displays with growing concern. "Equipment malfunction?" "No, sir, all instruments confirm the readings. The star itself is changing." Similar reports began coming in from across the Morvac Empire. Stars that had burned steadily for billions of years were suddenly showing signs of instability. Solar storms erupted without warning, disrupting communications and damaging orbital installations. Emperor Krulthax received the first emergency reports while reviewing invasion plans for human space. His science advisor, Minister Thalkor, brought data that made no sense to anyone. "Your Majesty, we're detecting stellar anomalies in 17 systems simultaneously. The probability of natural occurrence is essentially 0. The Emperor's face darkened. "Are you suggesting someone is attacking our stars?" "I?" Don't see how that's possible, Your Majesty. But the pattern strongly suggests artificial cause. Across the galaxy, human stealth ships continued their deadly work. The nanobots were reproducing themselves using stellar material, spreading the instability deeper into each target star. What had started as minor magnetic fluctuations was growing into something much worse. Dr. Kang monitored the process from the Retribution, now safely outside the Morvac system. The nanobots were performing exactly as designed. The red giant was developing a massive magnetic storm that would soon make the entire system uninhabitable. Stellar destabilization at 15% and climbing, he reported to Admiral Lee. All target stars showing expected progression. On the Morvac homeworld, panic began to spread as their suns started showing visible signs of distress. Solar flares lit up the sky with unnatural colors, and radiation levels spiked high enough to damage electronics. The planet's magnetic field deflected most of the harmful radiation, but not all of it. Emperor Krulthax watched from his palace as the sky flickered with aurora patterns that should have been impossible at his planet's distance from the star. His science teams were working frantically to understand what was happening, but they had no experience with weaponized stellar engineering. The humans, strategic analyst Zephyrin said quietly. This has to be the human response to our Veil Nebula operation. Impossible, Admiral Thokmar protested. Humans don't have this kind of technology. No one does. But as more reports came in from across the Empire, the truth became undeniable. 17 key Morvac systems were experiencing identical stellar problems. The mathematical probability of natural occurrence was so small, it might as well be zero. War Commander. Vextar's fleet was trapped in the red giant system as solar storms intensified around them. His flagship's shields were taking constant damage from radiation bursts. Several smaller ships had already lost power and were drifting helplessly. Sir, his communications officer called out, we're receiving a transmission on all frequencies. It's from the humans. The image that appeared on Vextar's viewscreen was Admiral Lee, broadcasting from the Oracle's voice. The human's expression was grim but determined. People of the Morvac Empire, Lee began. 6 months ago, you attacked and destroyed the hospital ship Hippocrates. You murdered 847 medical personnel and patients who were engaged in humanitarian aid. You ignored their medical status and killed them while they were treating wounded civilians. Vextar felt a chill run down his spine. He remembered that ship, remembered the desperate transmissions begging for mercy. He had destroyed it anyway. Lee continued. You chose to attack our healers. Now you will learn the consequences of that choice. 17 of your star systems are currently undergoing stellar destabilization. This process will make those systems uninhabitable within the next 6 months to 2 years, depending on stellar mass. Emperor Krulthax watched the same transmission from his throne room, his face pale with shock and rage. They're bluffing. No one has the technology to attack stars. But even as he spoke, another solar flare erupted from his system's sun, visible through the palace windows. However, Admiral Lee's voice continued, we are not monsters. We offer you one chance to save your people. Order the immediate and complete withdrawal of all Morvac military forces from the Veil Nebula and surrounding regions. Surrender War Commander Vexitar for trial as a war criminal. Do this within 72 hours, and we will halt the stellar destabilization process. The transmission ended, leaving the Morvac leadership in stunned silence. They're lying, Vextar said, but his voice lacked conviction. Around him, the red giant continued its death throes, proving that the humans were very serious indeed. Emperor Krulthax faced the first real threat to his empire in over a century. The species he had dismissed as weak healers had somehow turned their stars into weapons. Now billions of Morvac lives hung in the balance, and the countdown to potential extinction had begun. The empire that had shown no mercy to human healers was about to learn that mercy, once refused, might never be offered again. Emperor Krulthax stood on the observation deck of his flagship, looking out at the Morvac home system. 3 planets orbited the yellow star, each one covered with the dark cities of his empire. Billions of Morvac lived here, all loyal to his rule. His empire stretched across 200 star systems, and soon it would be even larger. The destruction of the human hospital ship had been a perfect demonstration of Morvac power. One quick attack had cleared the humans out of the Veil Nebula, leaving all those valuable minerals for the Empire. Other species had taken notice. Several alien governments had already sent messages offering tribute and cooperation. "Your Imperial Majesty," Admiral Thokmar approached with a datapad. "The expansion fleets report excellent progress. The Kalani have surrendered 3 more systems, and the Zelthari are requesting peace negotiations." Krulthax smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. This was how Empire worked. Demonstrate overwhelming force, and lesser species would submit rather than face destruction. The Morvac had perfected this strategy over centuries of conquest. "What about the humans?" the Emperor asked. "Any response to our actions in the Veil Nebula?" "Nothing significant, Your Majesty. Some angry speeches from their politicians, economic sanctions that won't affect us. The usual weak responses from a soft species." Krulthax nodded. Humans were known throughout the galaxy as healers and builders, not warriors. They had advanced medical technology and seemed to genuinely care about other species' welfare. Such weakness disgusted him. War Commander Vextar entered the throne room, his dark armor polished to a mirror shine. He had been the hero of the Veil Nebula operation, personally commanding the fleet that destroyed the human hospital ship. His quick thinking had eliminated a potential complication and sent a clear message about Morvac territorial claims. "Emperor," Vextar bowed deeply, "I bring reports from the front lines. Our forces have occupied 18 asteroid mining stations in the nebula. The mineral extraction is proceeding ahead of schedule." "Excellent work, Commander. Your decisive action against the human ship prevented complications that could have delayed our operation for months." Vextar felt pride swell in his chest. The humans on that ship had broadcast their medical status repeatedly, begging for mercy. But mercy was weakness, and weakness had no place in the galaxy. Better to eliminate problems before they grew larger. "Your Majesty," Admiral Thokmar interrupted, "our intelligence division has prepared an analysis of human military capabilities. Should we be concerned about retaliation?" The Emperor gestured for the report. Strategic analyst Zephyrin stepped forward, carrying a detailed assessment of human space forces. "The Terran Federation maintains a defensive fleet of approximately 800 ships in," Zephyrin began. "Their technology is adequate but not exceptional. They focus primarily on exploration and scientific research rather than military development." Krulthax studied the holographic displays showing human ship designs. Their vessels were sleek and efficient, but clearly built for peaceful purposes. Many were converted cargo haulers or research ships, nothing that could threaten a proper Morvac battle fleet. Their response pattern follows standard victim behavior, Zephyrin continued. Political protests, economic measures, appeals to galactic law. Humans have never launched a major military campaign against a superior force. They prefer negotiation and compromise. This was exactly what the Emperor wanted to hear. The Morvac military machine had crushed 47 different species over the centuries. Humans would be number 48. However, Zephyrin hesitated. "There are some unusual patterns in human behavior that concern me." Admiral Thokmar frowned. "What kind of patterns?" "Human response to attacks on their medical personnel differs from their response to military losses. Historical analysis shows they become unpredictable when healers are targeted." War Commander Vextar laughed. "Unpredictable how? Do they write angry letters? Send formal protests?" "Actually, sir, the data is limited. This appears to be the first time anyone has deliberately attacked a clearly marked human hospital ship. Previous conflicts have respected medical neutrality." Emperor Krulthax waved dismissively. "Irrelevant speculation. What matters is military capability, not emotional responses. How many ships can the humans field against us?" "At maximum mobilization, perhaps 1,200 vessels, but most are unsuited for combat operations. We estimate they could deploy maybe 400 effective warships." The Emperor smiled. His invasion fleet alone numbered 600 ships, all designed for war. The humans would be outnumbered and outgunned from the start. Prepare the first battle fleet for expansion operations into human space, Krulthax commanded. Commander Vextar will lead the assault on their border colonies. Once we demonstrate our power, they'll surrender like all the others. Vextar's eyes gleamed with anticipation. Crushing human resistance would be even easier than destroying their hospital ship. At least military vessels could shoot back, making the battle slightly more interesting. What about the Kalani and other species in the region? Admiral Thokmar asked. Will they interfere? Unlikely, Zephyrin replied. The destruction of the human hospital ship has intimidated potential allies. Most species are choosing neutrality rather than risk Morvac retaliation. This was perfect. The galaxy's reaction to the hospital ship attack had been exactly what the Emperor hoped for. A few species sent messages of sympathy to the humans, but none offered military support. The galactic community valued stability over justice. Emperor Krulthax looked out at his empire's capital world, where millions of Morvac citizens worked to support the imperial war machine. Factories produced warships, training centers prepared soldiers, and research facilities developed new weapons. The empire was a perfect military machine, designed for conquest and expansion. The humans made a mistake when they tried to interfere in our territorial expansion, he declared. Their medical mission in the Veil Nebula was clearly an attempt to establish a foothold in our space. Commander Vextar's quick action prevented a long-term problem. The assembled officers nodded in agreement. This was the official story they would tell. The human hospital ship had been a threat to Imperial security, eliminated before it could cause trouble. Privately, Vextar remembered the desperate transmissions from the human ship. They had genuinely been treating wounded civilians, including children from multiple species. But the Empire's expansion was more important than alien lives. Sentiment was a luxury that warriors couldn't afford. Begin mobilization immediately, the Emperor ordered. I want the invasion fleet ready to move within 1 month. The humans will learn what happens to species that challenge Morvac authority. As the meeting ended, strategic analyst Zephyrin remained behind to file his complete report. His analysis had identified several concerning factors about human psychology, but the military leadership clearly didn't want to hear about potential complications. Zephyrin had studied 47 previous Morvac conquests, and they all followed the same pattern: show overwhelming force, demand surrender, occupy the defeated territory. It worked because most species were rational actors who chose survival over pointless resistance. But humans might be different. Their response to the hospital ship attack didn't fit normal patterns. Instead of immediate surrender offers or military mobilization, they had simply gone quiet. Human communication traffic had actually decreased after the attack, as if they were planning something they didn't want detected. Zephyrin filed his concerns in the official report, but he knew they would be ignored. The Morvac Empire had never failed to conquer a target species. Confidence bred from centuries of success made them blind to new threats. Deep in human space, the Terran Federation was indeed planning something. But it wasn't the conventional military response the Morvac expected. Project Hippocrates was nearly ready, and the empire that had murdered healers was about to learn that some wounds could never heal. The Morvac invasion fleet prepared to launch, confident in their superiority and certain of victory. They had no idea that humanity was about to show them what happened when angels were forced to become demons. The Morvac Empire crumbled in 72 hours. Emperor Krulthax sat on his throne, watching through the palace windows as his sun flickered with unnatural light. Solar storms had knocked out power grids across 3 continents. Orbital stations reported structural damage from radiation bursts. His mighty empire, built over centuries of conquest, was dying star by star. Your Majesty, Admiral Thokmar approached with a datapad, his hands shaking. Evacuation reports from the affected systems. We have refugee ships streaming away from 17 different stars. The numbers are... Tell me, Krulthax commanded, though he dreaded the answer. 43 billion citizens are fleeing their homeworlds. The transportation infrastructure can't handle the load. Many will die before we can evacuate them. The Emperor closed his eyes. In 3 days, the humans had done what no enemy had accomplished in 400 years of Morvac expansion. They had brought the Empire to its knees without firing a single conventional weapon. On the bridge of his flagship, War Commander Vextar watched his fleet disintegrate around him. The Red Giant's radiation storms had disabled half his ships. The others were struggling to maintain life support as solar flares battered their shields. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "another ship is reporting reactor failure. The Bloodclaw is requesting immediate evacuation." Vexitar nodded grimly. His grand invasion fleet, meant to conquer human space, was trapped and dying in the grip of their own star's fury. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had killed healers, and now faced death himself with no hope of rescue. Dr. Jae-Sung Kang stood in the command center of the Oracle's voice, watching the real-time data from the nanobotic swarms. The stellar destabilization was proceeding exactly as predicted. Each target star was developing the same pattern of magnetic instability that would eventually make them lethal to all life in their systems. "Doctor," Admiral Lee approached him quietly, "the Morvac have sent surrender terms. They're offering complete withdrawal from the Veil Nebula and full reparations for the Hippocrates attack." Kang studied the data streams. "What about War Commander Vextar?" "They're reluctant to hand him over for trial. They claim he was following legitimate military orders." The physicist's face hardened. "Legitimate orders to murder medical personnel?" "I don't think so, Admiral. Across the galaxy, alien governments watched the collapse of the Morvac Empire with growing terror. The humans had demonstrated a weapon that could destroy entire star systems. Every species that had remained silent during the Hippocrates attack now scrambled to distance themselves from the Morvac. Ambassador Minseo Park received delegations from dozens of governments, all offering support and assistance to the Terran Federation. The same species that had called for restraint after the hospital ship attack now praised human justice and proportional response. "It's amazing how quickly opinions change when the weapons are pointed at someone else," Park observed to her aide. The Kalani government, whose civilians had been aboard the Hippocrates when it was destroyed, sent a formal message of support. They offered their entire medical fleet to help evacuate Morvac civilians from the dying star systems. Dr. Yoon-ji Song monitored the nanobotic systems from her laboratory on Phobos. The microscopic machines were reproducing faster than expected, spreading the stellar instability deeper into each target star. Soon the process would become irreversible. "Dr. Kang," she called over the communication link, "we need to make a decision soon. If we wait much longer, the failsafes won't work. The stellar destabilization will continue even if we send the shutdown signal." Kang looked at Admiral Lee. "How long until the Morvac deadline expires?" 18 hours. They've agreed to most of our terms, but they won't surrender Vextar. Then the nanobots continue their work. Emperor Krolthax made his final decision in the last hour before the human deadline. 3 of his 17 affected stars had already progressed beyond the point where evacuation was possible. Billions of Morvac faced certain death from solar radiation. The Empire's survival depended on complete capitulation to human demands. "Summon War Commander Vextar," he ordered. "Tell him he's being transferred to human custody for trial." When Vextar received the order, he wasn't surprised. He had known this moment would come ever since he chose to fire on the hospital ship. The humans wanted justice for their murdered healers, and empires had always sacrificed individuals to preserve themselves. "Will you run?" his second-in-command asked quietly. Vextar looked around at his dying fleet, trapped in the radiation storm of their own star. "Where would I go? The humans have shown they can kill entire solar systems. There's nowhere in the galaxy to hide from that kind of power." The handover took place on a neutral station in unclaimed space. Vextar walked calmly to the human delegation, his hands bound but his head held high. He had been a warrior of the Empire, and he would face judgment like one. Dr. Kang personally operated the nanobotic shutdown sequence as the Morvac surrendered. The microscopic machines received their termination signal and began self-destructing throughout the affected star systems. But 3 stars had progressed too far for complete recovery. Systems 4, 9, and 15 are beyond the point of no return, Kang reported to Admiral Lee. The nanobots have shut down, but the stellar damage will continue. Those systems will become uninhabitable within 6 months. Lee nodded grimly. 3 dead stars and 14 saved. The Morvac got off, lighter than they deserved. The trial of War Commander Vextar became the most watched legal proceeding in galactic history. Representatives from every major species attended as the human prosecutor laid out the evidence of his war crimes. The most damning moment came when the defense revealed that Vextar's own son had been saved by human doctors 3 years earlier. Dr. Hana Kim had been part of the surgical team that removed a brain tumor from the child during a diplomatic medical mission. You murdered the woman who saved your son's life, the prosecutor stated. You killed her while she was trying to save other children just like yours. Vextar had no defense. The facts were undeniable. He was sentenced to life imprisonment on a human penal colony, where he would spend his remaining years serving in medical facilities, helping to save the lives he had once been so willing to destroy. The Morvac refugee crisis lasted for months as billions fled the 3 dying star systems. The galaxy's response revealed the new balance of power. Human medical ships led the evacuation efforts, providing aid to the same species that had attacked them. The Federation's massive hospital fleet saved millions of Morvac lives. Emperor Krolthax abdicated his throne and went into exile. His empire split into dozens of smaller states. The age of Morvac expansion was over, ended by a species they had dismissed as weak healers. Dr. Kang never worked on weapons again. He destroyed all research related to stellar destabilization technology, ensuring it would die with him. The power to kill stars was too terrible for any species to possess, even his own. We created this weapon to protect our healers, he explained to the Federation Council. Now that the threat is gone, the weapon must go too. No one should have the power to murder stars. The galaxy established new laws protecting medical personnel and facilities. The Hippocrates protocols made attacks on clearly marked medical ships a crime against all sentient life, punishable by the combined military forces of the galactic community. Years later, a new hospital ship was launched from Earth's orbital shipyards. The Hippocrates II was the largest medical vessel ever built, equipped with the most advanced healing technology in known space. Its crew included both humans and reformed Morvac, working together to save lives across the galaxy. Ambassador Park spoke at the ship's dedication ceremony. The original Hippocrates died because they showed mercy to those who needed healing. The Hippocrates II lives because we showed mercy to those who had forgotten how to heal. This ship represents our choice to return to what we do best: saving lives, not taking them. The ship's first mission was to the 3 dead Morvac systems, where human scientists worked to develop new technologies that might one day restore life to the poisoned worlds. It would take centuries, maybe millennia, but humanity had made a promise to heal what their weapons had broken. Dr. Song, now the ship's chief medical officer, stood on the bridge as they approached the first dead star. Its radiation had finally stabilized at levels that allowed careful scientific study. In the distance, construction crews worked on massive orbital platforms that would shield new colonies from the stellar radiation. We're healers again, she said quietly, watching human and alien workers laboring together. That's who we were meant to be. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their ability to destroy, but their dedication to preserving life. The species that could kill stars chose instead to save them, proving that mercy, even when tested by the most terrible crimes, could still triumph over vengeance. The Hippocrates was gone, but its mission lived on in every hospital ship that followed. Humanity had shown the galaxy both their darkest capability and their brightest hope, and chosen to walk in the light. The medical ship Hippocrates drifted silently through the Veil Nebula, its white hull marked with red crosses that every species in the galaxy knew meant healing, not war. Dr. Hana Kim walked through the main medical bay, checking on patients from 7 different worlds. The ship had been helping refugees for 6 months now, ever since the Kalani and Morvac started their bloody war over mining rights. Captain Taemin Park stood on the bridge, watching the colorful nebula clouds drift past the view screen. He had left the military 5 years ago to captain this hospital ship. Too many battles, too much death. Here, he could save lives instead of taking them. The Hippocrates carried no weapons, only medical equipment and hope. "Captain," called Communications Officer Dalho from his station. "We're getting a distress signal. Kalani transport ship badly damaged. They have wounded on board." Park nodded. "Set course to intercept. Alert Dr. Kim to prepare for casualties." In the medical bay, Nurse Bora Choi was already gathering supplies. When the alert came through, she had seen too much suffering in this war. Kalani children with burns from Morvac plasma weapons, Morvac soldiers dying from Kalani acid attacks. The war made no sense to her. Both sides wanted the same asteroid fields, but there were plenty of rocks in space for everyone. The Kalani transport ship looked like it had been through hell. Its blue hull was torn open in 3 places, and atmosphere leaked out in frozen clouds. The Hippocrates moved alongside it carefully, extending docking tubes to create a safe passage between the ships. 32 casualties, reported Dr. Kim as the first wounded Kalani were brought aboard. Burns, broken bones, and radiation exposure. We can save them all if we work fast. The medical team moved with practiced skill. Human doctors worked alongside alien nurses they had trained. The universal translator helped, but after months of working together, they barely needed words. A pointed tentacle here, a clicking sound there, and everyone knew what to do. Bo-Ra worked on a young Kalani whose arm had been badly burned. The child's parent stood nearby, making worried chirping sounds. Bo-Ra smiled and spoke softly in broken Kalani. "Your little one will be fine. We fix, we help." Hours passed as the medical team worked. The Hippocrates had the best medical equipment in this part of space. Human medicine had advanced far beyond what most species could do. They could regrow limbs, repair brain damage, and cure diseases that other species considered fatal. "Captain." Park checked on the progress while monitoring long-range sensors. The nebula made scanning difficult, but he thought he saw something moving in the distance. Ships, maybe. He hoped they were more refugees needing help. "Captain," Dalho called out, his voice tight with worry. "I'm reading multiple contacts on long-range sensors. Big ships, moving fast. They're heading this way." Park felt his stomach drop. "Can you identify them?" "Working on it. Captain, they're Morvac warships, a full battle group, at least 12 ships." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what Morvac warships meant. The Morvac Empire had a simple rule: kill first, ask questions later. They had been expanding their territory for decades, crushing anyone who got in their way. "Open a channel," Park ordered. "All frequencies, let them know who we are." Dalho's fingers flew over his controls. "Channel open, sir." Park stood up straight, speaking clearly into the communication system. "Morvac vessels, this is Captain Taman Park of the Terran Federation medical ship Hippocrates. We are a hospital, ship providing humanitarian aid to wounded civilians. Our status is neutral. We carry no weapons and pose no threat to anyone." They waited. The Morvac ships kept getting closer. "Try again," Park said. "All languages. Make sure they understand." Dalho sent the message in Morvac, Kalani, and 6 other languages. The computer even added visual symbols showing the medical cross and neutral status. Still no response from the Morvac ships. Dr. Kim came to the bridge, her medical coat stained with alien blood. "Captain, we need another hour to finish treating the wounded. Some of them can't be moved yet." Park looked at the sensor display. The Morvac ships would be in weapons range in 20 minutes. "Do what you can, Doctor. Work fast." Down in the medical bay, the human medical team worked desperately to save their patients. Bora helped load stable patients onto stretchers to move them to the Kalani transport ship. The little one with the burned arm clung to her hand, afraid to let go. "It's okay," she whispered. "You're safe now." On the bridge, Park tried one more time. "Morvac vessels, please respond. We are clearly marked as a medical ship. Check your sensors. We have no weapons. We are treating wounded civilians, including women and children." The Morvac ships came closer. Now they could see them on visual. dark, sharp vessels that looked like flying knives, built for killing, not healing. "Captain," the sensor operator called out. "They're charging weapons." Park's blood turned cold. "All hands prepare for emergency evacuation. Get everyone to the Kalani ship now." But it was too late. The lead Morvac ship, a massive cruiser with the markings of War Commander Vextar, opened fire. Plasma bolts slammed into the Hippocrates hull, tearing through the medical bays. "Why?" Dr. Kim screamed as explosions rocked the ship. "We're doctors. We help people." The second volley hit the main reactor. Alarms screamed throughout the ship. Captain Park grabbed the emergency communicator and began recording the ship's final message. "This is Captain Taman Park of the hospital ship Hippocrates. We are under attack by Morvac forces. We showed them our medical status. We told them we were treating wounded civilians. They opened fire anyway." Another explosion shook the ship. Systems failed one by one. Park continued recording. 847 souls aboard this ship. Medical staff from Earth, patients from 17 different species. All we wanted to do was help. The ship's hull cracked open. Atmosphere rushed out into space, carrying with it the dreams of peace and healing that the Hippocrates represented. In her final moments, Bora held the little Kalani child close, shielding the small body with her own as the medical bay collapsed around them. Dr. Kim died trying to reach her patients. Captain Park went down with his ship, still broadcasting their story to anyone who would listen. The Morvac ships finished their work and moved on, leaving only wreckage and silence behind. War Commander Vextar marked another victory in his log book. To him, it was just another ship eliminated. He never bothered to learn the names of the people he had murdered. But across human space, every communication relay carried the Hippocrates' final message. The attack on a clearly marked hospital ship would not be forgotten. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when someone killed human healers. The news hit Earth like a plasma bolt to the heart. Every communication channel carried the same horrible story. The medical ship Hippocrates had been destroyed by Morvac forces while treating wounded civilians. The ship's final transmission, played over and over, showing the unprovoked attack on a clearly marked hospital vessel. Admiral Dong-Wook Lee sat in his office at Fleet Command, watching the footage for the 10th time. His hands shook with rage. In 30 years of military service, he had never seen anything so cold-blooded. The Morvac ships had ignored every signal, every plea, every law of civilized warfare. "Sir," his aide knocked on the door. "The President is calling an emergency meeting. She wants all department heads there in 1 hour." Lee stood up slowly. His joints ached these days, but the pain in his heart was worse. 847 good people were dead. Doctors, nurses, engineers, all killed for the crime of healing the wounded. Across the city, Dr. Yoonji Song sat in her laboratory, staring at a photo of her research partner, Dr. Hana Kim. They had worked together for 8 years developing new medical technologies. Hana had been like a sister to her. Now she was dead, murdered while trying to save lives. Song's computer chimed with an urgent message. Military intelligence wanted to review all of Dr. Kim's research projects. Apparently, some of her work might have applications beyond medicine. Song wiped her tears and began gathering files. If Hana's work could help humanity respond to this attack, then Song would make sure it happened. Intelligence officer Sang-Ho Ryu worked through the night, analyzing every detail of the attack. The Morvac ships had come straight for the Hippocrates, ignoring the damaged Kalani transport entirely. This wasn't random violence, it was planned. "Computer, show me Morvac expansion patterns for the last 5 years," Ryu commanded. The holographic display lit up with star charts. Red dots showed Morvac conquests, slowly spreading outward from their core worlds. The pattern was clear. They wanted the entire Veil Nebula for its rare minerals. Human hospital ships were just obstacles to be removed. Ryu dug deeper into intelligence files. The Morvac Empire had a simple strategy: demonstrate overwhelming force to make other species surrender without fighting. They had used this approach 47 times in the past century. It always worked, but humans weren't like other species. President Elena Martinez stood before the emergency session of the Federation Council. Representatives from every human world had gathered, their faces grim with anger and sorrow. The attack on the Hippocrates had united humanity in a way nothing else could. Citizens of the Terran Federation, Martinez began, her voice steady despite her rage. Yesterday, the Morvac Empire committed an act of barbarism that cannot be ignored. They attacked and destroyed a clearly marked hospital ship. They murdered 847 innocent people whose only crime was helping the wounded. The council chamber was silent, except for the soft sound of weeping from family members of the lost crew. Martinez continued, "The galactic community calls this a tragic misunderstanding. They say we should negotiate, that war helps no one. But there was no misunderstanding. The Morvac ships received our signals, they saw our medical markings, they chose to kill healers anyway." Admiral Lee stood up from the military section. "Madam President, what are your orders?" Martinez looked around the chamber at the faces of humanity's leaders. Some wanted peace at any cost. Others demanded immediate military action. But Martinez had already made her choice. "I am authorizing Project Hippocrates," she announced. "We will develop a response that honors our fallen medical personnel. The Morvac Empire will learn that there are consequences for attacking those who dedicate their lives to saving others." Dr. Song presented her findings to the Military Research Committee. Dr. Kim's work on medical nanobots was more advanced than anyone had realized. The tiny machines could repair damaged tissue at the cellular level, essentially rebuilding a person from the inside out. The nanobots were designed to save lives, Song explained. But the same technology that repairs tissue could potentially modify other types of matter. Metals, ceramics, even stellar material. General Han Kyung-min, head of weapons development, leaned forward. "Are you saying these nanobots could be weaponized?" Song hesitated. The idea felt like a betrayal of everything Hana had stood for, but the image of her friend dying in the attack steeled her resolve. With modifications, yes. They could be programmed to break down materials instead of repairing them. Meanwhile, Ryu's investigation revealed the identity of the Morvac commander, who ordered the attack. War Commander Vextar had a reputation for ruthlessness, but this was beyond even his usual cruelty. The intelligence files showed something interesting. 3 years ago, Vextar's son had been saved by human doctors during a diplomatic medical mission. Dr. Hana Kim had been part of that medical team. Vextar had murdered the woman who saved his own child's life. The story spread through human space like wildfire. Social media exploded with images of the Hippocrates crew, their faces young and hopeful. Bora Choi, who had learned 6 alien languages to better help her patients. Dr. Kim, who had saved thousands of lives in her career. Captain Park, who had left the military to become a healer instead of a warrior. Alien species that had benefited from human medical aid sent messages of sympathy, but the galactic community's response was disappointing. Most governments called for restraint and dialogue. Some even suggested that humans had brought the attack on themselves by operating in a war zone. This attitude only made humans angrier. On Mars, the secret research facility buzzed with activity. Scientists and engineers worked around the clock, driven by grief and determination. They had always been peaceful people, but the attack on the Hippocrates had awakened something dark in humanity's heart. Dr. Jae-Sung Kang, the Federation's most brilliant theoretical physicist, had refused military contracts his entire career. He believed science should be used to build, not destroy. But when he learned that his sister had died aboard the Hippocrates, he volunteered for Project Hippocrates without hesitation. Kang's specialty was quantum field theory, the science that governed how matter and energy interacted at the smallest scales. Combined with Dr. Song's nanotechnology, his knowledge could create something unprecedented. As news of the project spread through the scientific community, volunteers poured in from every human world. Engineers, physicists, computer programmers, all united by a single goal: make sure no one ever attacked a human hospital ship again. The Morvac Empire continued its expansion, confident that humans would respond like every other species they had conquered. A few angry words, maybe some economic sanctions, then eventual surrender when faced with superior military force. Emperor Krulthax personally commended War Commander Vextar for eliminating the human presence in the Veil Nebula. The destruction of one hospital ship had cleared the way for claiming the entire region's mineral wealth. But deep in the research labs of Project Hippocrates, humanity was preparing a response that would change the galaxy forever. The same species that had dedicated itself to healing was about to show what happened when healers were forced to become destroyers. The Morvac Empire had no idea what was coming for them. The research facility on Phobos looked ordinary from the outside. Just another mining station on Mars's small moon. But inside, the brightest minds in human space worked on humanity's darkest project. They called it Project Hippocrates, named after the hospital ship that had died trying to save lives. Dr. Jae-Sung Kang stood before a massive holographic display showing the internal structure of a star. Numbers and equations floated around the image like digital snow. For 3 months, he had been trying to solve an impossible problem: how to turn a sun into a weapon. The energy requirements are still too high, he muttered, running his hands through his hair. We'd need the power output of a small star just to affect a larger one. Colonel Sujin Bei watched from the observation deck above. As military liaison for the project, she was supposed to keep the scientists focused on practical results. But Kang's work was beyond anything she understood. The man was trying to weaponize nuclear fusion itself. "Doctor," she called down, "remind me again why we can't just build bigger bombs?" Kang looked up at her with tired eyes. "Because the Morvac Empire has 1,000 worlds, Colonel. We could bomb their planets for a century and barely make a dent. But every world depends on its star. Kill the star and the entire system dies." The idea was brilliant and terrifying. Instead of fighting the Morvac military ship by ship, planet by planet, they would target the very sources of life and energy in Morvac space. No defense could stop an attack that came from the system's own sun. Dr. Yoon Ji-song worked in the biological section, modifying her late partner's medical nanobots for a very different purpose. Where Dr. Kim's nanobots had been designed to repair and heal, Song's new versions were programmed to modify and destroy. "The nanobots can survive in the vacuum of space," she explained to the project team during their daily briefing. "They're powered by solar radiation, so they actually work better near a star. Once deployed, they'll begin modifying the star's core material." "How long before we see results?" asked Kang. Song checked her calculations. "Depending on the star's size, anywhere from 6 months to 2 years. The process starts slowly, then accelerates as the nanobots reproduce themselves using stellar material." The artificial intelligence system called Oracle processed their research data, looking for solutions to seemingly impossible problems. The AI was voiced by Jinwoo Nam, a computer programmer who had died in the Hippocrates attack. His family had donated his brain scans to create Oracle's personality matrix. "Dr. Kang," Oracle's familiar voice filled the laboratory, "I have identified a potential solution to the energy problem. What if we don't try to affect the entire star at once?" Kang turned to the nearest speaker. "Explain." "Create a small instability in the star's outer layers. The star's own energy will amplify the effect, spreading the instability inward, like dropping a stone in water and watching the ripples spread." The concept was elegant. Instead of fighting the star's massive gravitational forces, they would work with them. A tiny push in the right place could eventually topple a giant. Kang spent the next week developing the mathematics. The equations were beautiful and horrible at the same time. He was essentially writing the formula for stellar murder. "It could work," he finally announced to the assembled team. "We create quantum field resonance in the star's chromosphere. The nanobots establish the initial pattern, then the star's own magnetic field spreads it throughout the entire stellar body." Colonel Bay frowned. "In simple words, Doctor, we teach a star how to tear itself apart." The first test came on a distant red dwarf star in an uninhabited system. The test nanobots were loaded onto an automated probe and launched from Phobos. The journey took 2 months, during which the team refined their targeting systems and prepared for the next phase. Song watched the telemetry feed as the probe approached the small star. Nanobots deployed, Initial readings show successful integration with stellar material. For days, nothing seemed to happen. The star continued burning as it had for billions of years. Some team members began to worry that the test had failed. Then, Oracle detected the first changes. Solar magnetic field showing anomalous patterns, chromosphere temperature increasing in targeted zones. Over the following weeks, the red dwarf began to show signs of distress. Solar flares erupted from its surface with increasing frequency and intensity. The star's normally steady light output began to fluctuate wildly. "It's working," Kang whispered, watching the data stream. "The nanobots are creating a cascade failure in the star's magnetic containment system." The red dwarf's death throes were visible across several light years. Massive solar storms scoured 2 uninhabited planets, sterilizing their surfaces with radiation. The star didn't explode like a supernova, but it became completely unlivable for any form of life. "Stellar ignition successful," Oracle reported. "Target star rendered hostile to biological life within its gravitational influence." The laboratory fell silent. They had done it. They had killed a star. Kang stared at the data, horrified by what he had created. As a child, he had dreamed of touching the stars, exploring the galaxy, building a better future for humanity. Now, he had created a weapon that could murder entire solar systems. "Doctor?" Colonel Bay asked softly. "Are you all right?" Kang looked around at his team. Dr. Song's face was pale but determined. The other scientists showed a mixture of pride and terror at what they had accomplished. They were all good people who had been pushed to create something monstrous. "We've created the most terrible weapon in galactic history," Kang said quietly. "A device that can kill not just armies or cities, but entire worlds, every living thing in a solar system." "The Morvac killed our healers," Song replied, her voice hard. "They murdered people who dedicated their lives to saving others. They deserve whatever happens to them." Oracle's voice filled the silence. "Dr. Kang, shall I begin calculating deployment scenarios for Morvac star systems?" Kang closed his eyes. His sister had died aboard the Hippocrates, killed while trying to help wounded refugees. The Morvac Empire had shown no mercy to human healers. But was this the right response? To become monsters in order to fight monsters? "Yes," he said finally. "Begin the calculations, but Oracle, also design fail-safe systems. If we're going to use this weapon, we need to be able to stop it if necessary." "Understood, Dr. Kang. Fail-safe protocols will be incorporated into all deployment scenarios." The team worked through the night preparing humanity's response to the attack on the Hippocrates. They were about to unleash a terror that would make the Morvac Empire rue the day they chose to murder human doctors. But in the back of his mind, Kang wondered if they were saving humanity or damning it. The power to kill stars was a power that no species should possess. Yet the Morvac had forced their hand by attacking the most innocent people in human space. Soon, the galaxy would learn what happened when someone pushed humanity too far. The empire that had murdered healers was about to face the consequences of their cruelty.